Demetrius, thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here and to be involved in this. Just out of curiosity, how many of you in the audience are orthopedic surgeons? Okay. So don't hold what I'm going to tell you against me. I decided to take a little bit of creative license with this talk because I really didn't know what Demetrius wanted me to talk about. So I paralleled some leadership examples with a trip that I took a number of years ago to visit Mount Everest. And I've sort of crafted a little bit of example here and there, and we'll see where this goes. Mount Everest is a huge mountain, and it was first documented by Sir George Everest in 1850. And you may think that that was a leadership moment. Well, the interesting thing is that George Everest never actually saw Mount Everest. Apparently, he was a drunken bureaucrat. His scouting team found it. He went back to London to report about it and died a few weeks after in a drunken binge of some sort. So that's not the leadership type moment that we're looking for, that we really want to achieve. The other leadership moment was George Mallory, who was the one who actually climbed Mount Everest. And everyone kept asking him, why are you climbing? Why are you even trying to climb Everest? And his standard response was, because it is there. But Everest is a tough place, and a lot of people are probably familiar with the 1996 book Into Thin Air written by John Krakauer, which really chronicled the 15 deaths at that point in time. But if you look at the history of people attempting to climb Everest, 2,000 climbers from 1953 to 2004 have actually summited, so they're doing pretty well. But from 1923 to 2004, 175 climbers have actually died. So there's about a 10% risk rate on trying to climb Mount Everest. But when we're asked about leadership, Mallory said because it is there, we're frequently asked leadership, it's because who we are. That's what some of us are just doing. We come out, we get out with our groups or our teams, and we build things, and we're challenged by it, and we really look forward to doing it. So the parallel is there. It's the challenge and trying to achieve something that we feel proud of, essentially. This is actually a great book, and I'd encourage everyone to go find it. It was written by Alexander Margulis, who's a surgeon from New York City as well. And it's Be in Charge, a leadership manual. I encourage everyone who's interested in this to get out. It's about $20 on Amazon.com. It's about a 3-washroom visit book. You can get through it that kind of quickly. And in it, there's this one quote: leadership is the ability to inspire others to follow and change the future. Its basic ingredients are integrity, vision, courage, and loyalty to one's principles. And I really think that just sums it up and ties into it's who we are, it's what we do, and it's the rules that we live by, essentially, in working with other individuals and, quite frankly, in working with our patients. One of the leadership lessons that I've learned, and it's probably from the School of Hard Knocks, is pick an attainable target. It takes a while. It's not something that you can do. You're not going to climb Mount Everest in one go. You're not going to be the department chair or sit on the board of governors of your hospital or anything in one go. It's always a stepwise process, and you're training, you're preparing, you're planning. So pick your targets and try to work towards those targets each step of the way. Another aspect is know who you are leading. This is in an area called Namche Bazaar, which is in Nepal, and this is an amazing place. Nepal is a phenomenal country where you have the Sherpas who essentially live in the mountains, and then you have the Hindu Nepalese who live down in the valleys. And every weekend they all get together in this area called Namche Bazaar, which is sort of halfway up the Himalayas, and they just barter and trade, and there's just all sorts of people back and forth. And there's just big, massive human movement and animals and produce and everything else. But unless you know what you're doing, unless you know who your customers are, unless you know who your team is, it's going to be very, very difficult for you as a leader. And the best example is us in the operating room. We have to know the teams that we're dealing with, the nursing staff, the clerical staff, the surgery schedulers. We even have to get along with the anesthesiologists every once in a while. So as the leader there, you have to really know who you're leading and know what you're looking for in the final product. Another mistake, and this is something that, again, I've fallen into this trap, trying to do too much in one short span of time. To get from Namche Bazaar to Mount Everest is about a 100-mile walk. And the buddy of mine and I that decided to do this, testosterone's kind of flowing, and we said, everyone else takes 6 days to do this walk. We can do it in 3 days. That's not the case. If everyone else takes 6 days, you're probably going to take 6 days too. And we pushed it, and when we got there, we were just physically spent. So do a little bit every day. Know what you need to do, pick that attainable goal, and just march slowly and get every little bit done. Don't do more than you think you can achieve at that one point in time. Now, is the audio working on this one?
Yet, but we're going to start negotiating shortly.
So we can turn the audio off. This was interesting. As we were walking up Everest, we saw this construction area, and these were some of the local Sherpas in the mountain where they were cutting down trees, and they were actually fashioning planks to build homes and buildings by hand. And if you noticed closely, the guy with the saw there, there's one guy up on top, one guy below, and they're all doing this by hand, and the saw had worn down to just a thin portion right in the middle. So I asked that guy, the foreman of the job there, I said, isn't it about time that you change that saw that, it looks like it's almost worn out? And the guy looked at me like I was from Mars. He said, that saw was my great-great-grandfather's saw, who passed it on to my grandfather, who passed it on to me, and that's my son up there using it, who's probably going to pass it on to his son, for his son. And for them, that was the right tool. They were using it and using it to its fullest and extent, and just always make sure that you've got all the right tools. And again, now I don't know how many of you in the OR have implemented the checklists and the timeouts and all the other new tools that we have, but we always make sure we've got everything in place, and that's part of that leadership issue. Another thing is to use every possible resource you have. There is a lot at our disposal, and a lot of the times I refer to some of the stuff we do as MacGyver-type stuff. In Nepal, they have the yaks, which are the beasts of burden, and they're exceptionally important, and they use absolutely every resource. They use the wool, they use the milk, they use some other things that we'll mention, but one thing they don't do is eat the yaks. They don't eat the yak meat because they know how important that resource is as a renewable resource to them. This was the team that I went climbing with. Myself and my buddy Rick are the two guys in the middle. On the left-hand side, or the right-hand side of the screen there, the tall individual is Ang Nuri Sherpa, who is a legend in Nepalese mountain climbing. And I didn't realize this when we sort of hired him to guide us up there. But he is the guy that actually carried Reinhold Messner's skis to the top of Mount Everest so that Reinhold Messner can ski down Mount Everest. And he did it without oxygen. And he's climbed Everest a number of times, and he's also climbed another peak called Lhotse, which is a sheer ice face without oxygen. And he's the only one that's apparently done that on his own. So he was the most humble, unassuming individual, but just a giant in the Nepalese climbing world. And I got lucky enough to have him guiding me up there. The guy on the far left there is Dilbader Sherpa, who was our cook. And that guy had a smile that was endless. Now, when you're climbing, you don't take much stuff with you. He had a little bit of rice, a little bit of potatoes, and some eggs, and that was it. But the food he was able to make, we had pizza one night, we had something that tasted exactly like chicken one night, and it was just phenomenal. So if you've got good people around you, you can actually do anything you want or make it taste like anything you want. As a leader of a team, you're essentially charged with providing the team with a fertile environment. Now, this is at about 12,000 feet of altitude up in the Nepalese mountains, and you can see nothing at all grows down there. But if you drop down to 10,000 feet, it's absolutely fertile. And as leaders, what we have to do is provide the team, know at what altitude we can flourish. We can do the things that the team needs to do to advance and to move ahead with it. This is a second book that I'd encourage everybody to read. Bill Russell of the Celtics, the Boston Celtics, that may not be a good thing to mention here, but anyway, Bill Russell was one of the team captain and champion, 11 championships in 12 years. Phenomenal athlete. He was voted one of the 100 most influential athletes in the world, and also the athlete of the century by the Sports Illustrated group. But he published this book, and it's called Russell's Rules, and there's actually 13 rules in that he abided by. But these are the three that I thought were most pertinent to us as physician leaders. Rule number one was that learning should be a daily experience, but a lifetime mission. And really, that's what I think we all do, just by showing up to these meetings and by getting involved and doing things. But we should also be encouraging all those that work with us to abide by that rule. Rule number two is craftsmanship and quality are never accidents. Things don't happen by chance. Things don't happen by chance in the operating room. They don't happen by chance in our office. They certainly don't happen by chance in the business world. So craftsmanship and quality are never accidents. And three, make craftsmanship contagious. Make sure those around you appreciate the importance of that craftsmanship and quality. So again, look up that book. See if you can find it. Russell's Rules. I'd encourage you to all read it. Now, when you're working with teams, and the previous speaker brought this up, every member of the team needs to know his or her responsibility. These are that same group of carpenters, and they go down into the valley, they chop a tree down, and they all know that they have to work together to get that piece of lumber up the mountain, to then carve it into planks, to then build their building. And they are as exacting in their standards as they can be. Here they are chipping away at granite stones, and these guys are phenomenal at making these perfectly square. When they build their houses up in the mountains, they don't use any mortar, if you look at that house in the background. Yet it's perfectly chipped blocks. So the quality, the craftsmanship, it's not an accident, and they're exacting in their standards and their commitment. Because on the mountain, there is no sympathy. Bad weather comes in. If you don't do something on day one, on day two, you and your family are dead. Now, as leaders, we always have to be prepared to deal with bureaucracy. And this is the entrance to the Kumba Valley, which is the pathway to Mount Everest. This is the only way in and out of that valley, unless you want to scale 21,000-foot peaks on either side of the valley. But you can see all of the signs, or all of the warning things, and there is a bit of bureaucracy in getting in and out. And we all know now with the various healthcare reforms that are coming into place, our lives are going to get far more difficult. I don't think we're going to change the way we practice that much, but we're certainly going to have to deal with more bureaucracy. And as leaders, we always have to remember to take a break and to essentially, once in a while, pray, because it does help. It sets us back. It makes us realize what we've got going. These are the prayer stones that are along the walk to the Kumba Valley, or through the Kumba Valley. And when we were walking with Dilbada and Angnuri, they were mumbling, and we had no idea what they were mumbling. And essentially it was this prayer on there, and the prayer says something to the effect, please deliver us to our destination and return us home safely. After the third day of walking, Rick and I were mumbling all the way up and down the Kumba Valley. So prayer never really hurts. And you also have to enjoy the view. There's plenty of things. When we're in these privileged positions as leaders, we are able to take advantage of certain things and the people we get to work with and the meetings we get to go with. So enjoy the view on the way up and down. Now sometimes we get a little discouraged by what we do or what we have to do. And I'll put a challenge. Can everyone see the picture there? Does anyone know what this young lady's doing? Any guesses out there? I'm sorry? Cow dung. Very good. I was about to offer a glass of wine or beer, so I'm glad you brought that up early. Yeah, remember I said the Sherpas use every resource they possibly can. So this young lady goes around town, picks up all the yak dung, makes these patties, puts it on her fence to dry, and that's what they use for fuel to burn during the cold winter months. Now, they're pretty resourceful in that, but what they didn't figure out is at 12 or 14,000 feet where they live, there's not that much oxygen for combustion. So the stuff never really burns. All it does is smolder, and it's the most toxic smelling material. It just burns your eyes. It's terrible. But that's how these guys survive. So next time we are saddled with a responsibility that we don't like or that we're discouraged about, just remember what this lady's doing here. Life could always be worse for you. And occasionally, as we're going down our paths as leaders, we get lost. We're in the wrong direction. Track back. Start again. Figure out where you came from. Look at the various directions. See what's going on. This is the way up one of the side peaks called Kalapatar on Everest, and it flanks Everest. This is where everyone takes the pictures from the top of it. And you can so easily get lost amongst this and end up on the other side of the mountain. So you've got to really follow the trail, know what you're doing. If you're off the trail, go back and then start over again. And as always, and I think a lot of us live by this, if someone says it's impossible, prove them wrong. There's the top of Mount Everest, as you can see it, and it is quite a spectacular view when you're up there looking at things. Now, I spent 3 weeks up there. And everyone talks about hypoxia and what happens. And after we got up there, we went back down to Kathmandu. And we were walking around one of the markets in Kathmandu. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this animal. And I thought, geez, that cow has 5 legs. And man, that hypoxia, I must have fried some brain cells. There's no way. But that's a true thing. That's a parasitic limb on that cow. Now, as an orthopedist and a spine surgeon, I'm intrigued by this. And as I'm watching this animal, it's scratching the back of its head and its ear with that 5th limb. So my first reaction was, after being on the mountain for 3 weeks, filet mignon. My second reaction after watching him scratch his ears was, I got to get an MRI scan, because if that's a parasitic limb, it's not supposed to be connected to his central nervous system. But it was. Now, the Hindu, clearly, the cow is a religious symbol in Hindu culture. So for the Hindu, this was a holy cow. And you always have to just expect the unexpected and deal with it as you go and move along with it. And then when you do get there, remember, every once in a while, it's good to pat yourself on the back. When you get up to the top of the mountain, blow your horn, let people know so that you can get on with the next project and do whatever it is you need to do or want to do. And with that, hopefully it was entertaining and highlighted some of the leadership lessons and the moments and tying things in with the operating room and what we do for a living. Thank you very much.